The reading from today is taken from Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 to 16, and it can be found on page 19 in the church booklets. So that's Genesis chapter 4, 1 to 16. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord I have brought forth a man." Later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. But Abel also brought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. This is the word of the Lord.
I got this other thing going. All right. If you're hungry and stuff, you can go live in the land of Nod for the next 25 minutes. That's okay. We have 2 services at St. Stephen's, and usually I find myself preaching the same sermon and just feel sorry for my team because they're like there for the first one and then there for the second. So what I tend to do is there's some bits that I add in the second one. Are you with me? Yeah? Awesome. You're not going to lose out. You guys, it'll be fine. Yeah? For context, I'm a dad. I've got 3 kids. 4, 6, and 8. They're not this tall. They're like that tall. Things wrong. We keep chickens. I've got 2. If I ever do any slides, there'll be chickens in there somewhere randomly to rescue you from the land of Nod. But I love Jesus, and hopefully that comes across. Hopefully that comes across to you too. Awesome. Should we rock on? Yeah? Do you guys like the Bible? Let me just check. Who likes the Bible? Yeah? I think it's the most awesome book. I get why it's a bestseller. It's so full of like all the things. It's got Game of Thrones in it. It's got like John Wick, assassins, and all that kind of stuff. There's a dude who's a left-handed assassin. He's epic. He kills a fat man, which is not good, but the way they describe the scenario is ridiculously funny. It is funny. Look, it's funny. It's funny. It's very random, Stuart, but yesterday, on Friday, I was cooking for our youth. And I had to go and get something. And to get there, I had to pass through this little cupboard space. And it's used by many people. And they left something, and I tripped. Yeah? But I couldn't reach for the thing to stop me falling. I hurt myself. It hurt. But playing it in my head, it was funny. If someone falls, it's funny. It's sad, but it's funny at the same time. The Bible's full of all that stuff. And so what I want to say is, get in touch with wonder, because the scripture's full of it. And hopefully, as we unpack this, you'll catch some of that. Yeah? Work with me. Genesis chapter 4. Let's start from verse 1. I'm a screenwriter at heart, so I love telling stories and I love to enter stories with characters. So we're just going to explore a couple of the characters. Is that all right? I'm interactive also, so shake the Britishness out of you and just holler back. Is that all right? Thank you very much. Good. Now, all right. A couple of characters in the story. There's Adam and Eve. Yeah? They're in the story. We're just going to touch on them and then move on. Thank you. I heard that immediate response. It was good feedback. Focused, that is. We're here. Adam and Eve are in this story for one reason, and this is important. They're the first people. They're the first ones that God interacts with. And so what you have is the scenario where God gives them absolutely everything. All the things you long for, he gives them. He gives them an attitude that's confident when naked. Can you imagine that? What a gift. Look, it's in the Bible. I told you it's funny. He gives them an attitude that's confident when naked. He gives them all the foods that they can eat, and he gives them his presence. So he rocks up, and like at that point, magic hour for photographs when it's like midsummer afternoon, hazy, yellowy, when you take a photo and it looks amazing. God rocks up, they're feeling good about themselves. They hang out with him. He's like there. It's like, yo, Dad, what's happening? Adam's like, yeah, I found an animal. I called it a duck. He's like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And, it's all going down. He gives them all of that. They're living incredible. And then what do they do? What do they do? For one moment, they go, he might have got this wrong. He might have got this wrong. And I'm touching on their character because I just want to explore very quickly this idea of sin and how it cascades forward into something else. Our language tries to capture what the Hebrew language does. So if you're in a traditional space and you pray the Lord's Prayer, you get to the bit where it's sins and people get confused. Some say sin, some say trespass. And it's like, which one do we go with? Which one do we go with? Trépas or sin? Which one do we go with? There's three words that I use to describe sin. The first one, and if you're bored, you can work with me here. In Hebrew, it's chata. Don't say it. You'll have to like swallow your spit. It's not nice. And what this means is, I tried to do the right thing. I just couldn't. For various reasons. It was your birthday. I was supposed to get to this meal on time. There was loads of traffic. As I was going, someone threw a baby in the street. I don't know why they do that, but it delayed the whole procedure. Do you understand what I mean? It's a rotten image, but I'm giving the idea that circumstances were out of your control. I know, I'm trying to keep you out of nod. Yeah. But I got there late, so I didn't fulfill the thing that I set out to do. Chata. The second one is pesha. Pesha is like, we agreed to meet, yeah? And I was vibing to this tune, it was nice. And this breakfast was so good, and I just thought to myself, it's okay if I'm late. And then I got there late, and you're like, why are you late? And I'd give you some excuse. But I chose to break the agreement. Yeah? The third one is this thing called avon. Avon is like iniquity, and what that describes is how bent out of shape you become when you keep choosing to do the wrong thing. You get so bent out of shape, choosing to do the wrong thing becomes the default setting. Yeah? You now set out to do evil. And many of us would have encountered this kind of individual. And some of us may actually be like that deep down inside. Yeah. And I'm talking from my own experience. I love my kids, but when my son's trying to tell me about his day in the evening, there's a lot of iniquity in me. Because he talks a lot. He's 6. He's got so many stories. And to be honest, I'm 36. That world is so tiny, And it takes a lot of work for me to sort of rein it back and present a good dad. I'm just being real with you, to say it's at work in me, and it may not be at work in you. But if you think there's nothing wrong with you, that's the thing that's wrong with you. Okay, it cascades. Sin creates its own climate. So if you miss the mark, and you miss the mark again, it's easier for you to choose to miss the mark. If you choose to miss the mark, and you choose to miss the mark again, it's easier for you to make that your default setting. Yeah? It creates the environment for it to carry on. So Adam and Eve, I'm starting with them in this part of the story because I want you to see how the cascade happens. Yeah? They do something, and then the environment shifts, and God tells them the shift in the environment. It's like, yo, you'll think things are going to be the same. They're not. It's shifted. The climate has shifted now. It's not going to be as easy. You're going to go and try and work with the earth, but because you're not in tune with me as we were, it's not going to work because this depended on this connection between us, you know? You're going to try and be in relationship with one another. It's not going to work the same because that depended on our relationship being in tune. But because trust got broken between us, now trust between you is not going to work because I'm the source of life. And where you should have lived forever, that's not going to work. Even though you'll have eternity in your hearts and yearn to live forever, that's not going to work because the connection where trust came with you and the source of life is not there anymore. That's just the reality of circumstances. It's a consequence. By the way, someone rages against you saying, why did God curse people? Actually, it's just a consequence. This is it. Yeah? So we meet these brothers at a point where the climate has changed. Now, Adam made love to his wife. I am 14. I found that funny. She became pregnant. If you didn't know that, that's how it works. I'll leave it to Stuart to talk to you about that one. She gave birth to Cain, and she said, with the help of God, I have brought forth a man. Okay, now I'm saying that, and you're like, what's this guy talking about? There had not been a birth up to this point. Yeah? No one knew that this was the gig. Look, am I reading a different Bible from you? It's the same Bible, right? And so all of a sudden, she has this superpower exposed. It's like, you thought you're just chilling, yeah? You thought you're just chilling. But there's something different between you and this guy. This guy can't do this. He can't do this. Yeah, maybe he can weave standing up, but no human being's ever going to come out from him. Sorry, Stuart. She's like, weaving standing up, throwing babies in the street. Well, this is just, I came to church today. So it's an incredible thing that happens. I'm trying to tell you something here. There is something amazing that God has given you, which is the ability to do this miraculous thing. When Adam was made, Eve wasn't there. She's never seen how men come about. So there's real wonder in her proclamation. She's like, yo, is this legit? Snap, that's so cool. Yeah. All right, I labored that point because there's a point in the second verse. Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel. So firstborn got what? What did the secondborn get? Later. Anybody here who's not a firstborn? Thank you. Yeah? Are you all feeling me right now? Yeah? You understand where I'm coming from with this, yeah? I'm the fourthborn. Yeah? So you know it's drama. My mom would introduce us like this. This is Simon is my firstborn. This is Alex is my second. This is James is my third. And this is number 4. And so I have relatives who know me as number 4. When the film came out, I am number 4. I was like, should I go watch this film? And like, part of me didn't want to. I was like, if I go and it just compounds my emotions, I'm going to have to go ministry time. I'm telling you this because it's important to what comes next. Yeah. The elation at Cain's birth is not matched for Abel. And so, as is with the Bible, and here I'm looking and I'm seeing people who are mostly younger than me. Yeah. What I want to say to you is, in the scriptures, sometimes 30 years are skipped in the gap between verses. Yeah? Now, if you don't make it your discipline to wait and ask just what's happening, you will miss a lot of the wonder that's in there. We're lucky with our English. We get full stops and gaps. In the original text, all the letters are together. There is no gaps. So to be able to read it, you have to do some full-on chapter translation to understand the whole thing before you can understand 2 words and make a sentence. It is insane. And so you have to really sit and rest in the scriptures before you can get to the point of opening it to actually read it aloud. Yeah? And we miss that discipline. And so we lose the wonder of the scriptures. And because we lose the wonder of the scriptures, we're not drawn to it. They defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Yeah, we're supposed to share that with one another. But faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. Encountering it means the transformation. And if we don't have the renewal of the mind happening, what happens? The consequence is the conforming to the ways of this world. If there is nothing distinct between us and the world, that's clear evidence that we're not engaging in the word. Are you with me? So, we've only done 2 verses. The gap between Abel and now is significant because these are now people who are working, probably your age, roughly, looking this way at the younger people, who are keeping sheep and stuff like that, growing crops. And what transpires in the text is they bring some of the produce before God, which I think is excellent practice. I think it's brilliant. One of the things that tends to happen is we forget the cascades, the different layers of grace. We forget that actually breath is a gift. Waking up is a gift. The life that we have is a gift. That we are born without some external brokenness is a gift. That we can conceal our brokenness from each other is a gift. That God showers his love upon us, it's a gift, even though we are idiots. Compared to him, you're definitely an idiot. It's the best place to start. So the practice of presenting before God, actually it's good discipline. It's good discipline. It reminds you of the things that you need to remember in order to have an attitude of gratitude. Oh, that cheesy line. I love that. And so they bring them. And I haven't found anything in the text that says the things that Cain brought were bad. I haven't found anything in the text that says the things that Abel brought were better than the things that Cain has. I haven't found anything in the text that said God is particularly not a vegan. I haven't heard that. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. There's something going on here which is more than just a simple thing. And I think for me it's tied into the attitude these two have before God and one another. Because Abel comes, and my sense of it is he's been the second son. He's known he's not going to be first. He's understood that that's his life. In my culture where I'm from, you don't tell the second son or third son or fourth son or even daughter what's going on in the family. That's not their role to know. They just come, eat, sleep. And it's only when the others have got their own family units and moved that you now explain what's what about the culture to the child that follows. So when I got engaged, before my brothers, it was a catastrophe. Really, it was a catastrophe. There were members of my family who did not want to attend the wedding. Now, that's a different culture from the ones you come from, but I'm saying that to say this. There's something about knowing that because of the place or the timing of your birth, there's some things that you just won't be able to attain. You just won't. Now, our world teaches us that we're supposed to strive for this thing called equality. Yeah? I'm going to be annoying right now. I don't think that's what God's after. God's not saying we're not equal. That's not what he's saying. We're saying our attitude has got to be like that found in Christ, who, though being in very nature God, chose equality with God, something not to be grasped. And he took the form of a servant. And what Jesus and God demonstrates is less and less and less and less so that we can serve the other and elevate them. Yeah? When we strive for equality, what happens to our eyes? It stops looking that way and starts to look that way. And that's where the problems begin. When Jesus talks about the Pharisee and the tax collector praying, what's happening? The Pharisee's not looking that way. He's looking that way. He's like, thank you that I'm not like this tax collector. But what's happening with the tax collector? He's looking that way and he's going, I'm not worthy to receive you. Only say the word and I shall be healed. It's not a question of equality. That's not what we're called to. We're called to service to one another in love. And this is where the brokenness of the attitude comes. Because Cain, having received everything all along, he's looking sideways. Now, I don't think this was always how it was. Possibly. I just think this one day, when they came before God, he noticed that there was no fire or smoke where his sacrifice. And he looked and he saw fire and smoke over there. And all of a sudden came this rush of things. And I just think God was up to something in Cain's heart that he needed Cain to address, which was in the way of a depth of intimacy between them and a heart of service towards his brother. The thing came up just to shake him a little bit. Shake him a little bit. Now, if we're called to serve one another in love, one of the things we're supposed to do, and Adam does the wrong thing with this, you're supposed to speak the truth to one another. But the truth serves heaven's purpose. Heaven's purpose isn't justice. Heaven's purpose isn't bringing us to a place where we understand our equality with one another. That's not heaven's purpose. Heaven's purpose is relationship, the miraculous union of difference. That's what the truth is supposed to serve. So when I come and someone's done something wrong to me, we're supposed to find the truth. Divide what's wrong and what's right, so that we know from what end we're going to interact. And to one of us comes the responsibility to be gracious, and to the other comes the responsibility to be repentant. And these are both divine actions. And repentance in the divine looks like a surrendered life. It looks like self-emptying. It looks like the Son says, I don't do anything unless it's my Father's will. Let not my will but yours be done. It looks like the Father saying, I am the Father of the Son. All of me is in him. To us, when we engage with one another, it looks like, do you know what? I'm really sorry. And it looks like you can't repay me for what you've done wrong to me, but the deep magic means here's a hug. That's the goal of heaven. Adam uses the truth as a weapon to steal from his other. It was her, the one who is different from me, which is true. She brought the fruit, which is true. But what's the truth serving? The truth is serving his self-righteousness, which he's stealing from someone else. That is one of the most abusive things you can do to an individual, is to take from them that which will make you self-righteous. It is deeply violent because it detracts from the image of God that's in them, detracts from them, and when you take life from someone, which is what the image of God is, it's their life, it's their very being. When you take life from someone, you consign them to death. You consign them to the space of non-acceptance, the place of anguish, the place where the miracle of the union of difference is impossible. That is the root of violence. And so when we meet Cain, and he refuses to embrace his other and celebrate with the other, he looks to take righteousness, to bring himself to a place where he's equal or greater than, never equal or less. Brings us to a place where he wants to be supreme. And to be supreme over someone else requires you to whack them over the head. There's just no two ways about it. You'll do it either with your words, you'll do it with your thoughts. Jesus says, if you're angry with your brother, you've committed murder. Or you'll do it with your hands. Many of us have experienced it, and many of us know it. I just want to say very quickly at this point, and this is one of those additional things. I don't think Social media lends itself to Christians loving each other as well as they should. It is one of the most potent places for us to be tempted to compare. It is deeply potent. And in that space where you're forced to look at one another and you're asked to present something that brings you either equal or greater than, you're most likely in the environment that sin wants to generate to make itself, perpetuate itself, you're more likely to choose to miss the mark at that point. To present something inauthentic that's unreachable for others so that you can celebrate your self-righteousness. Be careful. Sin is crouching at your door. You should master it, or it will rule over you. And the consequence of that is low self-esteem among so many people. A loss for them of the truth of God imparting his image. Do you know Mr. Sun, Moon, and Star Maker? That's the one who named you, who knows your worth and value, who calls you his child. God doesn't have grandchildren. He doesn't. You don't inherit his love from your parents. It was there for you. Paul puts it like this: before the foundation of the world, I chose you. I chose you. And yet 10 pictures can just steal that from you straight away. Straight away. I want to say this. Abel suffers violence. And he's so short in the story of scriptures. It's such a tiny amount of verses that he exists in. He arrives, he's innocent. There's nothing said about his guilt. He just lives, he's cash. He comes, he looks after some sheep. Do you know what I mean? Like, he loves his brother, he trusts his brother, and then it's gruesome. Like, his end is mixed with, like, a real betrayal. It's deep, you know? There is pain, there's confusion. In his mind, there's, like, he's the first person to have a brother. He's the first person to have an older brother. He's the first person to know what that's like. There's never been a murder. Imagine the depths of confusion. There's not been the kind of pain that he would have experienced as he lost his life. And there was no justice for Abel. Or do you think it's fair that God just let Cain run around? I don't know about you. I don't think it's fair. That's me personally. If we're looking for equality, yeah, Cain should have died as well. An eye for an eye. But, and I need you to hear me if you've experienced violence. Abel was the first person in heaven. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eye." No delegation. He's not doing good leadership. Doesn't say, here, Moses, select 12 people, go into the peoples and wipe tears. Yeah? The miracle of the tissue papers. That's not what's described. What's described is the personal act of deep love and intimacy to comfort an individual by your presence, your empathy, and your redemptive acts. You can trust this God because the work of heaven isn't that crime is punished, it's that you are restored. It isn't that crime is punished, it's that you are restored. I'll say it again. It isn't that crime is punished, it's that you are restored. And in the restoration, in the fullness of that, you join the saints and the angels, crying, "You are worthy. Holy, holy, holy are you, Lord." And we will meet Abel, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I know, but isn't God good? Look, I'm with my brother now." And that's my hope. Stuart's looking at me funny. I shouldn't have said that. So one last person to look at in the story. And it's the continuity of what he does that really excites me about who God is. Adam and Eve do the wrong thing, and they hide from each other. They conceal themselves from one another. They've lost the naked confidence, yeah? And now they've lost it. And so they go and they hide from one another. They deny each other presence. What does God do? He knows. In the story, it's told as if it's like he doesn't know. But he knows exactly what they've done. It's not away from him. He knows completely. But what does he do? He rocks up. He rocks up, and every question he asks, everything he says is an invitation. It doesn't skip the truth of what they've done, but it invites them beyond that into the deep magic. It invites them beyond that into relationship. And if Adam was to address God and not look that way and go, "Do you know what? I did this," I think we have a different story being told. If Adam didn't do that, and God turns to Eve and asks the exact same question, because he does it, and Eve goes, "Do you know what? I did this," we have a different story being told. God's presence comes to remind us of grace, to invite us into relationship, to bring us to the place of redemption, and to tell us that he is responsible for the deep magic, which we cannot attain for ourselves. He is responsible for that work of raising us and sitting us in heavenly places with Christ. He is here for that. He's here for that stuff. That's what he's here for. And he's consistent with it. From the very beginning, the first time people miss the mark and choose iniquity, all the way to the point where someone kills another. Do you think God did not love Abel? He loved Abel. He loved him. But he was still present for Cain. This is the wideness and breadth of God's love and mercy, that even while we were sinners, while we were enemies with Christ, God took upon him the cost of our iniquity. What it would take for us to be made one, he carried. And where Cain should have died, God did. God did. Present, ever present. Forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. And as Christ holds on to the Father like this in his obedience, doesn't let go. He says, "It's your will I'm going to fulfill." He stretches a hand and he holds on to you. And he just holds on. And the miracle of union happens. And when the Father's Spirit flows into the Son, you're not left behind. Because in him now, Pentecost happens to you. You're given the Spirit, the ring, the guarantee of the future that is to come. The skill set, the power to do that is that what he's called you to do in this life. He's doing that and he's going, "I'm not going to let go of that. You don't let go of me. I'm not going to let go of that. You don't let go of me." And if we just stick with this in this life, it turns into something glorious in the next. And then he looks at us and goes, "While you're holding on to me, yeah, turn and hold to the one who's different from you. Because by this, the world will know that you are my disciples, when you show love one to another, not just to your friend, but to your enemy. Leave the work of justice to me and search after the deep magic." I'm going to stop there. I'd love to pray with you later if you're someone who's experienced violence and you just want some healing for that, because God's up for restoration. This is what he does really well. I'd love to pray with you. I'm sure Stuart's here as well. If you're someone who has the regret of having done or said something that wounded another, and you're carrying that, and just want God to release you from that, I'd love to pray with you on that. Amen.